The congressional hearing room was cloaked in an unnatural silence. It wasn't the respectful quiet of routine proceedings, but the thick, electrified stillness of an incoming political storm. At the very center sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, once fiery beacon of the progressive left, now visibly weighed down by what felt like the gaze of an entire nation. Her usual poise remained, but cracks in her expression betrayed the pressure mounting around her. Opposite her, attorney Pam Bondi, renowned prosecutor and Trump loyalist, sat stone-faced, flanked by binders and legal documents. She wasn't there for debate. She was there for a takedown. Democrats whispered anxiously. Republicans sat still and smug, like chess players watching a planned checkmate unfold. Crockett's fists remained clenched on the table, the same hands that once pointed defiantly in viral clips now tensed with restraint. She had battled with Marjorie Taylor Greene, clapped back at Trump online, and stood before rallies roaring with support. But today was different. Today the lights weren't flattering, the crowd wasn't cheering, and Pam Bondi had come armed with more than rhetoric. She brought evidence. With eerie calm, Bondi opened the first folder. The weight of the moment pressed down as she began. Congresswoman Crockett, today we're going to examine the use of federal community support funds, specifically the $12 million allocated to a Dallas-based nonprofit under your direction. Her voice was cold steel. Behind her, a screen lit up. Displayed was an email bearing Crockett's office insignia, authorizing expedited fund transfers with the chilling line, "No additional vetting required," signed by her chief of staff. Gasps scattered. Reporters clicked pens and murmured. Bondi struck again. The nonprofit's chair, Angela Hayes, was a top donor to Crockett's campaign. Coincidence? Hardly. She flipped to another document, showing a money trail. Public funds redirected to firms owned by Crockett's allies. And then she dropped the line that sliced through the room. This wasn't just support. This was political recycling. Crockett's jaw tightened. She responded forcefully but measured. Dallas Community Forward helps the voiceless, children, black families, the underserved. If you want to criminalize compassion, go ahead. Her voice cracked slightly, not from guilt, but from fury. She cast her eyes across the room, daring others to speak. You don't go after fraud, you go after those of us who fight for real justice. Bondi didn't flinch. Her next exhibit was a chart tracing $3.2 million from the nonprofit to companies with no public bidding process. This isn't compassion, she said. It's collusion. The chamber buzzed. One Republican chuckled. A Democrat covered their face. Then came the email from a senior Crockett aide recovered through federal subpoena. JC needs DCF funds before next week's presser. Don't let anyone dig too deep. The tension snapped like a wire. Crockett stood, eyes blazing. That is not a smoking gun. You're twisting messages and threatening democracy in the process. I will not be your scapegoat. The words hung in the air, more protest than rebuttal. Bondi, unmoved, transitioned to witness testimony from a former Crockett staffer. They were told to avoid audits, to keep transfers under wraps. When they objected, threatened with termination. Crockett slammed a hand on the table. Anonymous testimony? That's your case? You bring whispers and call them facts? I stand by everything I've done for my district. But Bondi wasn't finished. She unveiled a signal message. JC wants the money moved. Keep audit committee out. The dots were connecting faster than Crockett could deflect. Then, the twist. Bondi flipped to a real estate record. Crockett's brother Marcus had acquired land in West Dallas weeks before Crockett advanced a highway bill through committee. After the project passed, land value jumped 180%. She clicked again. A message from a developer to Marcus. Thanks for the heads up. Finalizing the deal before the vote. Silence. Then whispers. This is bigger than we thought, a reporter said. Crockett's face stiffened. My brother's an independent businessman. I don't control his portfolio. She drew a breath. You're trying to criminalize my family. But Bondi had more. A chart linking Crockett's campaign vendors to nonprofit payouts. Your ads were made by firms that received these funds, she said. Convenient? Crockett's voice dropped. Those firms work with hundreds. I didn't direct a dime to my campaign. You have no order, no proof. She crossed her arms. Prove I took a single cent. Bondi raised an eyebrow, as if invited to strike harder. You didn't need to. Take it. The system you built delivered it to you. She presented another email. Thanks to JC for fast tracking. Campaign next quarter is priority. Bondi didn't need to dramatize. The document did the damage. The tension became unbearable. A soft murmur of, "She's done," rippled from the press row. Crockett's shoulders stiffened. You're smearing good work for a headline. Her voice wavered, but the defiance remained. I didn't build a machine. I built bridges. Bondi offered no rebuttal, just another document, a DOJ subpoena. The subject, obstruction of justice. A message from Crockett's aide. Delete all relief fund emails. JC doesn't want risks. The room froze. Crockett, for the first time, couldn't speak. Bondi stared her down. This is not a smear. This is obstruction, and it's a federal crime. Crockett's allies began to shrink in their seats. A few scribbled notes, others looked away. She tried to speak again. This is politics, not justice, but it was drowned in silence. Pam Bondi had turned the hearing into a courtroom, and she was the prosecutor, judge, and executioner. The evidence towered. The room suffocated in anticipation and awe. The second part had yet to begin. Jasmine Crockett sat unmoving, her jaw clenched, eyes locked forward, but her hands, resting visibly on the table, trembled. Everything about her posture screamed resistance, but it was clear the force field was cracking. Pam Bondi stood like a prosecutor delivering her closing argument. She didn't need to raise her voice. The evidence did all the shouting. Bondi turned to a fresh exhibit. Let's shift from nonprofits to real estate, she announced. Her voice held no malice, only precision. 3 plots in West Dallas, all purchased by Marcus Crockett, your brother, within weeks of you advancing a $1.5 billion infrastructure bill through committee. The screen behind her lit up again, this time showing a timeline. Votes, land purchases, zoning approvals. All of it aligned too perfectly. Crockett narrowed her eyes but stayed seated. She was waiting for an opening. Bondi didn't give one. Here, Bondi said, holding up a signed contract. This land deal was finalized 3 days before you presented the bill. And this, she motioned again, flipping to a message, is from a real estate developer to your brother. Thanks for the heads up on the new route. Gasps filled the chamber. That information, Bondi said flatly, could only come from someone on the committee. Crockett shot to her feet. Her voice cut through the tension, raw and sharpened by fury. My brother is a businessman, not a criminal. You're twisting facts and weaponizing family ties. I don't control his investments. She glanced around the room, daring allies to back her. A few nodded faintly, but no one spoke. This is about painting the picture of corruption where none exists. Bondi didn't blink. If this is just business, why did that same developer's firm later pay your brother $500,000 in consulting fees after the land value spiked? Another document appeared on screen, financial records traced in red ink. Then came the next strike. WhatsApp messages from that same developer. JC did good. The land's ready. Just pass the bill. The room stirred again. Reporters typed frantically. A Democrat leaned back in their chair, no longer taking notes. Crockett's reply came fast, but quieter now. You can line up every document in the world, but I know why I voted for that bill. It brought jobs, roads, and opportunity. I don't have to apologize for lifting up my city. But Bondi had read this script before. Then why did the money always benefit people tied to your donors? Why did companies connected to your campaign suddenly become eligible for small business relief funds? The next slide displayed a breakdown. 4 companies, all receiving over $1 million each, every one of them tied to Crockett supporters. These aren't conspiracies, Bondi said. They're patterns. Crockett tried again to interject. Those companies employ hundreds. They kept food on tables during the pandemic. I didn't manipulate anything. I prioritized my constituents. Bondi clicked once more. A new message. JC wants bright future and unity at the top. Don't let files go to audit. Recovered through federal subpoena, the message struck deeper than any speech. And then, silence. Not from hesitation, but from the gravity of it. Bondi let the pause stretch. Then came the sworn testimony. A former staffer who said they were instructed to direct money toward those firms. When I asked about the audit, the testimony read, I was warned my job was at risk. Crockett stood again, her voice unsteady. This is fabrication, lies from shadows. I never threatened anyone. But it was hard to ignore the wavering in her tone. This is a vendetta, not an investigation. Bondi, unshaken, presented her. Final round. Then explain this. She raised a DOJ document, this one an official notice of a criminal investigation. Obstruction of justice, fraud, ethics violations. She stepped back. This is not just evidence, it's confirmation. Crockett looked around the chamber. Her eyes searched for solidarity but found none. Even her usual allies sat silent, gazes low. One Democrat rubbed their temple. Another typed something into their phone, disengaged. Crockett swallowed hard, her voice dimmed but still defiant. This won't break me. I've faced worse. I fight for Texas, for families, not for profit. But the room wasn't listening anymore. They were absorbing. Bondi signaled for the final visual. The screen showed a subpoenaed email from Crockett's office. Delete all files tied to Bright Future. JC doesn't want exposure. The message came just days before the Oversight Committee's official inquiry began. Bondi let that image linger. This isn't mismanagement. This is a cover-up, and it's a federal crime. The hearing room, once tense with anticipation, now felt like a graveyard. Crockett's hands returned to the table, no longer clenched, but limp. Her voice was gone. Reporters typed faster. A GOP lawmaker whispered to a colleague, "It's over." A Democratic member attempted a weak rebuttal, calling the hearing partisan theater, but even they knew the tide had turned. Bondi didn't gloat. She simply said, "Congresswoman Crockett, your actions speak louder than any defense." That night, headlines exploded. DOJ opens criminal investigation into Jasmine Crockett. Pundits debated whether she would resign. Social media split in two. Some cried racism, others cried justice. Hashtags trended. In Dallas, 2 protests formed, one chanting, "Truth for Texas," the other, "Stand with Jasmine." But the momentum had shifted. Fox News called her the fall of the progressive star. MSNBC hesitated, urging due process. Trump's supporters circulated fictional posts praising Bondi as the cleaner of corruption. The damage wasn't just to Crockett's career, it was to her legacy. From her office window, she stared out at the Capitol. The paper in her hand read, "From icon to indicted." The spark in her eyes still burned, but the flame was dimmed. She might fight back. She might reclaim her platform. But the shadow of that hearing, the evidence, the silence from her own party, it all told a different story. One of a rising star caught in her own web. One of truth, sharpened by Bondi, striking with merciless precision. And one of a nation reminded, again, that no one is too powerful to fall.